Thanks, everyone. All right. Hi. So I'm Ben. I am Oregon State alumni. I graduated here in 2007. I was part of the EECS program. I sat through the ECE 400 class as a senior design class. And since I left the school, I moved to Bay Area. I've been working in the tech companies. I worked for a few companies, and then I started my own. Thank you for that warm introduction. I really appreciate it. As Tom mentioned, I started a company in the AI and smart home or connected home space. And I was fortunate, and I started that company about 4 years ago. I was fortunate enough to sell that company and had an acquisition and I had an exit last Christmas. And since then, I've been with that company. So I'm here today to just share with you my story, how I went through things, and I feel like I made so many different mistakes. I wish somebody told me some of those, so I hope to share some of my stories and some of my experiences with you guys. Hopefully it's useful to you guys as well. I put a quick agenda together, but I'm hoping to keep this casual, so if you guys have questions, feel free to stop me. Of course, at the end of it, I'll make sure there's enough time for us to ask questions as well. But I thought I'd start by giving you guys a quick background about myself and how did it all happen, and then a background about the company. I don't want to spend too much time talking about the specific of the company, but happy to. So I have some slides on that. Then I really want to get into how do I think about starting a company, or what I learned about when I wanted to start this company, or like where do you start from? I feel like I had no idea. Where do you start from? It's kind of, there's overwhelmed with many things. Then I definitely want to talk to you guys about my direct experience, which is a common question I get from people that want to start a company is how do I raise money and cash and funding, and how does that all come about? Especially for my case, I had a hardware and a software company, so there was a piece of hardware. So my experience is going to be specific to hardware company, so I'm going to share with you guys that. I'm going to leave you guys with what I think is the #1 role of an entrepreneur. I learned that the hard way, and I want to share that with you guys. All right. So start with a quick background. So my background, I was born in Iran, that's in the Middle East, but when I was in high school, or 14 years old, my family immigrated to Northwest. So I lived in the suburb of Portland, and I went to high school, and I finished my high school there. I came to OSU, and I was here, and I got an electrical engineering degree. And during my time here, I took 1 year off, and I did the MECOP program. So it was a 2 6-month internship. I did one at Intel, and I did one at Infocus. And I highly, highly recommend it. I remember at the time, I wasn't so sure about it. Should I sign up, should I not? Looking back, I think it's one of my best decisions when I was at OSU. So if you guys, now you guys are past that, senior year, but it was very, very helpful to me and my career. All right, I graduated 2007. I moved to Silicon Valley. And when I moved to Silicon Valley, I started my career by working in semiconductors. I worked for 2 big ones. One is Maxim Integrated Products, one is Texas Instruments. TI is headquartered in Dallas, but I was always worked in the Bay Area offices and all that. I started as a hardware engineer, or what Tom referred to application engineer. So these are like the chip design, IC design, or you do the circuitry and PCB boards around the chip to support that and all that. Within the same company, I transitioned from a pure engineering role to a product management and a business management role. That's the arrows on the bottom. So still heavily technical roles, but I wasn't in charge of making the chip anymore. I was learning a little bit about the business around what do you do when you make this chip? How do you sell it to someone? Who buys it and why does it work? Or who are your other semiconductor maker that make a chip? Why is yours better than theirs? Why would some company that makes a system should buy a chip from my company versus another semiconductor? There's so many semiconductor companies. What makes your chip better, and why, and what should you do, and a little bit understand about the business. Then when I was at TI was the second part. So that was about 8 years. So I was 5 years at Maxim and 3 years at TI. When I was at TI, I saw what I thought was a business opportunity, and I thought there is an opportunity to go and build a company around this idea of a security camera or CCTVs. So I obviously didn't invent CCTVs or security cameras. They've been around for years. Buildings like this have CCTV and security cameras. But I thought the future security cameras are going to look a lot different than today's one. Okay, and it also helped that in my day job, I was at TI, I was working on the SoCs and the chips that go inside cameras, so the video chips. So I had an idea of where the technology can go for the next 1 to 3 years. And I thought I knew what the technology can do and where we can push the envelope and where could be the innovation. So I thought the future camera is going to look different than today's camera. How they're going to look different? I thought they're going to look different 2 ways. First, they're going to be comprehend the things in front of them. They're going to be a lot smarter. So in the past, most of the security cameras, all they could tell you is motion detected, and motion detect was full of false alarm. Well, why can't the future cameras can comprehend like a human eye, can tell you Ben is in front of your front door, or Ben walked into this conference room, or the car that pulled into your driveway is a UPS truck. Our human eye can recognize a UPS truck from a normal car. Why can't the machine do that? Why can't the robot and give me that information? It's no longer important to give you hours and hours of video. It's valuable to extract the data from video and just give me a text message of the UPS truck showed up in front of your house at 10 a.m. Does that make sense? So I thought the future camera is going to look like that. 2, I thought camera is going to be everywhere. And this concept of the cameras to be everywhere, they have to be completely wireless, they have to be really cheap, and they have to be really easy to set up. So cameras like in this building, they hired, and they pay thousands of dollars. They have people drill holes and run wires and do all the cabling. Well, that's not scalable. What if this camera was as simple as setting up an iPhone? You go to a store, you buy a phone, you set it up yourself. You don't need to hire a technician to set it up. Why can't the future cameras be as simple as and cheap as anybody can buy it and stick it on a corner, and now we got an extra pair of eyes here. We got a smart eye monitoring this area. So I thought these are the 2 innovations that the future camera is going to look different, and people want it, and I went and started a company around it. Okay? That was the birth or the start of Butterflye. So an AI security camera. AI is all the computer vision and the smarts we do to move away from just telling you there was a motion to actually what happened in front of the camera, and can it comprehend that? And what that turned into, like now what's the useful feature that people want? It turned into 2 things really. It turned into, we have to develop a facial recognition technology so people care about who's in front of the camera. Like that's important to table that this is Ben versus the John versus Michael versus the children versus the dog that's moving around. So that's 1. And 2, the cameras have to be completely cordless. So there should be no wires and drilling holes and all of that. So you got to make this thing to work without power and without internet. Because internet is also, connectivity is also an issue. Because not everybody has reliable internet, or when you put it in your garage, you don't have a good Wi-Fi connection, it's far from your router, or if your office like this, who knows, there's so many different routers here, and just connectivity goes down. It should just always work. Right? Our phone works without a Wi-Fi. Why can't the cameras work without a Wi-Fi? All right. Now let me tell you guys how the Butterflye journey, how was my journey? It was a 4-year journey. How did it all start? It started end of 2013 is when I resigned my job at TI, and I went to start this company. So I officially started the company in 2014. I've been saving all my money. I had $30,000 worth of saving. Nobody wanted to give me any money to start this, so I put all my savings into that. And then I worked really, really hard the entire 2014 to meet investors. I was in the Silicon Valley, and I built a little bit of network, not an entrepreneur network, but a tech network. So I meet as many investors as I can. Finally, by October, I got $1 million worth of investment. And I figured out how do you raise money, what kind of paperwork you need to do. But it was really, really hard. It took more than 100 people rejected me. More than 100 people rejected me. I had to get coaching, and I had to take classes, and I had to hire mentors to teach me how to pitch better, because you're selling your idea, you're selling your company, you're selling the vision. And the very early days, you don't have anything else to show, so you better have a really, really good presentation of yourself and the company you want to build there. Along the way, Google and Amazon showed up with a product similar to what I wanted to build, and so many more people got a cold feet and didn't want to invest because they said, well, Google is making it. Amazon is going to make that camera, and they're obviously going to have more resources than you, more money and more engineers and more time. So it's not a good idea. We shouldn't do this. But I kept going. And in the middle, I took a little small investments from friends and family, like $25,000 check here and there. And I made progress. I made baby steps. I made a little bit more. I made my prototype a little bit better. I did a little bit of marketing to get my name out there and get the company name out there. Till finally in October, I was able to get the first investment, first large investment. After that, I started building the product more seriously, if you will. And I took the entire 2015. By September 2015, I launched the company on what I call the pre-order campaign. I use a platform called Indiegogo. It's also Kickstarter is another one. So I launched the company there, meaning I did a bunch of marketing and PR, which I'll talk to you guys about in details on how I did it towards the end. But I put the company up there, and I told people to buy my product, give me money for the product, and I will ship this to you in a couple of months. I did it September 2015. I told them I'll give you the product by January 2016. You know what I mean? So I took their money. So this was not investment. This was like a pre-purchase. Like but you be the first to get this camera off the line. Nobody else will have it. So that's how I pitched it. I was very successful. We sold $650,000 worth of product in about a 30-day period. So that was great. Before that, we had 0 sales, and then $650,000 is a huge amount of money. And I took that and I used that as a validation, and I went to investors and raised more money, $1.5 million on top of that. So that kind of success brings more success. That's kind of what happened. Nobody wanted to invest on me. Everybody in 2015 rejected me. I did a campaign. The campaign brings some sales. Now, technically, I didn't need money because I had $650K, but that led to more money coming in. And I'm really glad I timed that really, really well. It's one of those things, nobody wants to give you money when you don't have any, when you really need the money, but when you have some money, then more people want to give to you. So I learned to maximize that and take all the money you can when people want to give you money. Because these things are hard, these things are expensive. So then what happened? Then I was wrong. I screwed up. I didn't ship the product beginning of 2016. The product wasn't ready. I had bugs. I had software bugs. I had hardware issues. I couldn't pass my FCC test. I couldn't figure out what the thing is. Product couldn't ship. It took me almost a year. So I told people I'm going to ship you the product beginning of 2016. I shipped it the very end of 2016. So you can imagine how, so 2016 was a hard year. We were running out of money. And people were angry because they've given me their money and they don't want it. They don't have a product. They're online writing bad things about you or about your company. And thankfully, we made it through. Thankfully, we made it through, and we just heads down, like make the product work so we can ship it. Then we shipped it. After we shipped it, that was a huge milestone. We shipped it in volume. We shipped like 2,000 to 3,000 of these cameras. Then at that point, now this is beginning of 2017, end of 2016, the venture capital environment in Silicon Valley was very anti-hardware. There was a time when I started a company was actually they liked hardware. These things go cycle up and down, and investors follow like other, just like public patterns. So for example, in 2014, 2013, when I started a company or wanted to start a company, the previous generation of hardware companies in the Valley that I would get compared on was GoPro, was Fitbit. And these companies were doing an amazing job as public company. Their stock was growing. So the investors said, oh, okay, the Butterflye can be the next GoPro. It has the potential, and look at the exit on that. So we'll invest. In 2016, 2017, those companies, GoPros and Fitbit and Sonos, these are like the hardware companies that were a generation before mine. They were all struggling as a public company. I don't know, this is like Fitbit stock is so much down from 2014, like it's like 1/4. And so that means all the investment for the private little companies like mine was also struggling. So, but I needed money, otherwise bankruptcy. I mean, the bank account was really, it was desperate times. So I learned there are investors in China, and I learned I need to go to China, and I was already going to China because I had a hardware and manufacturing and all that, but I learned I need to learn how to raise money in China. And I went over there and figured it out that I raised $2 million from Chinese investors. And I learned how to bring money to the US from that, and money is money. You need it to build your company. And then 2017 was well, completely opposite of 2016. 2017, now we're shipping the product, and thankfully the reviews are good. So we got 5-star on Amazon, CNET is talking about us, and our name is getting out there much more positively. And it's so amazing to hear customer feedback that they love this product, get emails like that, oh, I love the product, I'm using it like this, I'm using it like that. So 2017 was awesome. Literally the week before Christmas of 2017, so a little bit more than a year ago, I was approached by another tech company in the Valley, a much bigger one, a public tech company called Ooma. They're in the telephony, voice over IP business. They kind of compete with Vonage, if you guys heard about them. And they wanted to get into the smart camera space. And they could go build it themselves, and they have engineers, they have R&D team and all that, or they could just buy us, and they will have the product now, versus if you go build it, it will be like another 2 years, 3 years to build it. So the numbers made sense, and they give us a compelling offer. And I talked to my investors, I talked to my board, and we sold the company. And since then, I've been with them. I loved what I'm doing at Ooma, and Ooma has given us a lot of autonomy, a lot of freedom to keep building and innovating on the space of cameras, smart cameras. I think there's a lot of room left for innovation. Many more generations of this kind of cameras are coming that are going to completely change how the current security cameras work. And it's all going to be because of that AI and because of that super easy install and completely tetherless. There are no wires connected to them. I think those two things. All right. Just a little bit, we got tons of good PR. And once the product shipped, USA Today covered us, CNET covered us. This really helped to get the name out there. And I believe the acquisition offer only came because the marketing name and the product reviews were good. Okay. Now the fun stuff. So this was just like history of what I did and all of that. Any question on this section? I want to now kind of transition into how do I think about starting a company and all that. Yeah. The owners didn't want to expose the numbers publicly, but it was it was a good deal for the investors. The investors made about 3-4 times of their money that they invested in the company. So it wasn't like a huge exit, like a Uber exit or something like that, but it was a pretty good money because some of them had put money in less than a year, 9-10 months, like the Chinese investors, and they got 3x that money. There's no other stock that gives you 3x of that money. So it was a pretty, not a bad deal for them. All right. Oh yeah, please, sorry.
So you talked about the money part of it.
Yes. I'll talk a lot more in details on the team part too, but yeah. So the team is a tough. You have to have a team. Nobody invests on you, one individual person. I also didn't even have a co-founder, which I wish I did. But finding a team, it started from my network. So it really helped that I worked for 7 years in the industry in the Valley. I get to meet other hardware engineer, mechanical engineer, all type of different disciplinary, or a marketing person or a business person to be able to put this team together. In the very, very early days, I didn't have money to pay these guys, so I couldn't ask them to leave your job and come join me. So it was a lot of, hey, you want to help me out in the side, on the weekends, on the evenings, so to get the things off the ground. Once you get some money coming in, then you can, but you have to be very diligent, but you can hire like individual roles and be like, okay, I'll give you this much salary, come in. Do you have more question? Yes?
Do you think you had to be in Silicon Valley to raise money?
I think so, yes. I'll talk about that too. I think location matters. A lot of people are like, oh yeah, Valley is expensive. There's smart people everywhere, and you can do it everywhere. And it's true. These things are really, really hard. And when you're in the Valley, there are more people like you that are doing this thing, and there's more infrastructure. There's how do you raise money? When you want to go money from strangers, you have to have the right kind of lawyers to put the right legal documents together. There's plenty of them in the Valley. I think it's a little bit less if you want to start a company other places, especially if it's your first time. I think second or third time, it's easier to go other places because you've kind of learned the infrastructure. I think being in the Valley definitely helps. Yes? Well, it changed throughout the time, right? When I tried to be very diligent for what roles I bring in people in, and also I have to be very careful who are the employees, who are the contractors. Sometimes a contractor is a person, I need that person for a certain skill set for a period of time. Employees like, okay, this person is going to be a startup guy, he can do, or gal, he can do a lot of different things. I want him as an employee. At maximum, the company was 21 people. When we sold it, was only 10. I actually had to downsize and let go of some people. But right before you ship, we had tons of issues and we needed a maximum number of engineering. And then right after you ship, you can cool it off unless you're going to jump and make the next product. But I didn't want to. I wanted to focus on sales and marketing now that I got a product out in the market. So I had to downsize. Please. It took a long time, and it was really hard to get the best engineers. And I use my network in the Valley, and the way you pitch it is, you obviously assume, okay, now I raised a little bit of money so I can actually hire someone and give them a salary. I could never match the salary of a company like Apple or Google would hire them. But what I would sell them on the vision of the company, and always you offer your employees equity combined with salary. So the pitch is, I can't hire you the same money as Google, but look, I'll give you 3-4% of this company. Look, if this thing becomes the next GoPro, if this becomes a Fitbit, this 2-3% translates to like $10 million or something like that. So come be part of that, and when we get to build this. And there are other things too. A lot of engineers, when you're at a big company like Google, you're really focused on one little guy, that's just one little thing. Like in semiconductors, like I remember semiconductors, if you're in Intel, like they make those big SoCs. If you're there's so many chip designers. You're one guy doing one little cloud, let's say you're routing this one little corner of that chip. But if you come to a startup, you're like, I own the whole chip. I'm the guy that makes the whole thing work. There's a lot of ownership that comes with that. Intel would never give you that. You'll be like one of 200 different guys doing this. So then you find out what different engineers want. But it's very inefficient. You have to set up coffee meetings and meet these people. They're busy, you're busy. So it's good to be on the ground in the Valley to do these kind of things. Okay, let me keep going and you guys can ask me more questions. This second section, I want to start it by saying the answer. So I'm doing a lot of questions and answers. So I thought it would make it a little more fun if I just ask a question and just put an answer to a common question that I've got. And then, to be honest, the answer to a lot of them, it depends. But I hate the answers that means it depends. So I'm trying to give you guys some concrete answers. Let me start with where do I start? I thought about this a lot. And I think you start a company when you have these two things. You have an unmet need, and you have a vision of the future. Let me talk about the unmet need. Is the first line over there, in the middle line. It's unmet need or a problem or a pain point for a large group of people. It can't be just it's a problem for you. It has to be a large group of people. It translates to large markets. That's how you get investors to be excited about your product. And the vision of future is kind of like what I told you guys about the camera. Look, CCTV cameras exist today. I think they're going to be different in the future. I have a vision of the future, or today we live our home in a certain way. I believe in the future we all live our home with the robot voices in our home. And you talk to robots to do things for us. I'm very clear on that. So I think the future home is going to be different than today's home. So I'm going to go build a company around that space, just as an example of a couple of things. A lot of people ask me about co-founder and a team, and you guys a couple ask me. The answer to that is yes and yes. Get a co-founder which you have complementary skill set. I didn't. That's a mistake of mine. If I do a next company, I will definitely try to get one. I didn't find a person. I didn't work hard to find that person. You have to work hard to find that person. It doesn't come just, people don't just show up in your life. So I didn't work hard after getting that. And yes, you need a team. Early days, if you get an investment, like the investment pitch, of course, changes from early days, and we talk to angel investors, till later days when you talk to the VCs. But early days, it's really, you need to show people in your team, and their track record really matters. And who are these people that are going to make this company? So it's really, so your network actually really matters. Actually, your network here really matters. That's another lesson learned for me. I wish I did a better job. My network started at OSU, and everybody left, and they ended up at different tech companies. But 4 years down the road, 5 years down the road, especially the guys that ended up in Bay Area, or some of them ended up in, like I have one of our key firmware engineer who graduated from the computer engineering program here. He ended up at Qualcomm in San Diego. But we kept in touch and all that, and he joined us as an embedded software guy. So network is super important. This one little advice, get comfortable letting go of people. That was my biggest lesson. Most people don't work out in the startup, in my experience. Everybody is nice at the beginning. Everybody you have a coffee date with and you sell the vision. Everybody's, yeah, this is going to be the next GoPro. Let's go. But they come in, they see, oh, it's not all pretty. It's so much work, and they don't put the work in. So be comfortable that you let people go, and don't. I used to get very emotional about it, but I got better at it. Accelerators and incubators, yes, definitely do them. I didn't. I applied for one. I didn't get in. Because there's usually application to get in. I didn't get in, so I was like, that was my motivation to go do it anyway without them. But if you can, do the accelerator and incubator. I think Oregon State has a program as well. So they give you a lot of structure, and they put you next to other people that are doing what you're doing. So you're kind of building the company together. It really helps because it's a lonely journey, and it's good to have a couple of other people next to you that are doing, oh, they're like me. Things are here really bad, things over there are really bad too, so we're going to get through this together. Build a prototype as fast as possible, as lean as possible. So what I mean by that is you need some sort of you need prototypes. Either you do a software only startup, or you do hardware and software. So build something that you can show investors. It's ugly, it's half working, half not working, it's okay. Show it. It shows progress. It shows you have something in your hands. You're making it. On that word, I like this concept of a make a good enough product. Or another common term in the Valley is MVP, minimum viable product. And I think that's one of the big reasons my product took over a year. I was a year late on delivering that product. I didn't want to make a good enough product. Good enough didn't sound cool or sexy enough to me. I wanted to come, wow, like the Apple comes out with the product. It's like, wow, this thing has everything. But it doesn't work in a startup. It's much better to make it good enough. And by the way, good enough doesn't mean one level above a bad product. Good enough means you figure out one or two features your customer wants, and you just build that. You say no to many other features. And it's so easy. The feature creep is so easy as an engineer. Like, oh yeah, we can put one more feature. Maybe somebody would like it. This is a cool feature. And the other things sound cool too, but that they build up to a big mess. So I think it's really important. These days when a startup I meet and they say they're making a great product to me means they're late to market. And late to market is really bad for a startup. Apple doesn't care. They don't have to be first in market at all. They're never first to market with anything. But that's a different, we should never compare like a startup with like a company like Apple, in my opinion. Quick word on product design and how we thought about it as a Butterflye startup. It was like this. Now this works really well if you're a consumer startup. If you're B2B, if you're building something that your customer is going to be you're not going to be the user or the customer, it's a different, but I like these kind of startups better. I am the user myself. I watch other users. I do tons of user trial, user studies, and then I build a little prototype, a little mock-up, like simplest thing, you know, like why it should look white versus black. Why should the mechanical idea of this thing shoot this way versus the other way? Like simplest thing, not some sophisticated algorithm. At very early days, and those things really matter, in my opinion. And then it's a big feedback loop. The faster you can iterate on that, I think the better. The better. All right. Now I want to talk specific about hardware startup. It's because that was my case. That was what we built. First of all, if you're thinking about building a hardware or a physical product, I highly recommend getting this book and reading this book by a guy named Phil Baker. Super good book. It teaches you about the consumer product, physical product, all the details of from how do you find a factory, how do you get all the pieces together, what kind of testing you need to do at what stage, what are all the stages. So I highly recommend it. I want to talk about the employees one more time, a little bit more details, especially the early days. I had this question of, is he or she a co-founder or an employee? Or how do you figure all of this out? It was a big pain point in my mind. Co-founders are the ones that are joining you without a salary. That's the simplest form you do it. People want to do internship or they want to consult with you. They want to get a little paid. They are employee, one form or other. So keep that in mind. And just because you have co-founder doesn't mean it's 50-50. It's always, it's a whole game to how to set that up and be fair for both sides. This is more on the hiring side, my learning on the hiring. I hired when I was really desperate on a certain skill set. I didn't have it. I didn't know how to build our cloud, so I needed Java programmers, and I was really desperate. I was late by that time to market, so I would get whoever, oh, I know a little bit of Java programming, okay, let's come on board. We wouldn't do our due diligence on the hiring because we were so desperate. It never worked out. It never worked out. And I fire also very late. And it says, I hope it doesn't come across mean or bad. Like I said earlier, that most people don't work out in the startup world. And you have to be okay with that, and you have to be okay to have the tough conversation. I think that's the job of an entrepreneur and a CEO, to bring them in a room, be professional as possible, but you let them go. There's so many times I've been in a position of, I let go of someone, I'm like, man, 6 months ago I knew this person is not working out. Why didn't I let them go? I've never been in the opposite situation. I've never let go of someone and I'm like, man, I should have kept them another 6 months. So that's what I'm referring to here. Now, if you're building a hardware startup, how do you find your customers? How do you find your first customer for your awesome thing? Basically, how do you find the first 1,000 customers? I think you use Indiegogo or Kickstarter. I love both platforms. They all have a little bit of pros and cons. They all have weaknesses and strengths. Now, I want to get into, so we did Indiegogo. That picture in the past is actually off our screenshot of our Indiegogo page. You played a video, we did marketing and all that around it. So I want to tell you guys about what it took to build that. First of all, we had a video commercial. So how much that video commercial costs, and you have to hire people to do that for you. That video can cost you anywhere around $15,000 to $100,000. And video really matters. People love watching these videos. The videos are the ones that can go viral on YouTube and stuff like that, and I can have this, people could share it on social media. It's a lot more sexier than, oh, read the spec of this product. People want to see a cool video that can go viral. So I've done a couple of these videos. Do I need a PR? So I had to go hire PR agencies, yes. How do you get, like we got traction on CNET, on TechCrunch, on USA Today. This didn't happen by accident. We hired an agency, they do this, they get you, they have contacts of all these companies, of all these journalists and media, and they get you to all of these things. And they help you craft the right story for each one, like the story that CNET wants to write about your product is different than the other one. So they cost money, but you should do that. We did a ton of ads. You have to do ads for Butterflye at the time, and these things change. Facebook worked really well, so we did Facebook advertising. And you have to hire experts. Facebook is a monster of a machine, and they know so much about you, and there's this dashboard of advertising in there that you hire experts to set up different type of ads for you, and very targeted, very targeted ads. So now I think it's not Facebook, now it's probably Instagram, but at that year it was, and next thing will come, next thing will come. So you have to have something like that going. Yeah, and then it's big money is spent. I don't know if you guys are familiar, like you see $1 million campaign on a Kickstarter. Let's say like Pebble was a big famous watch company that was doing big campaigns there. They do like $1 million or 10 million. How do they do that? They're spending millions of dollars. As a general rule of thumb, you have to spend 25% of the revenue you want. You have to have a big product, a big market. It should appeal to most people. But you want to have $1 million campaign, you should have a budget of $250,000 on advertising. So big money, but big money comes in, but big money goes out. These are, but thankfully they're investors that they have money to give you this to build these things. Okay, now let me talk about the more on the sales and marketing after that initial Indiegogo and you're done. Indiegogo and Kickstarter is just a one-time thing. You get the first 1,000 customers and you're done. You can go back there. Let me start with how do you price your product? How do you come up with it? How do you price your product based on what the market it can afford to pay you. And it has nothing to do with this thing called COGS. COGS is cost of goods sold. It's cost of your stuff being manufactured in US or in China or in Taiwan, mechanical, electronics, testing, shipping it, all of that. So what would the market do? So your COGS could be very off and you could be selling a product for negative money. It could cost you $200 to make it, but the market is not willing to pay you more than 99. That's it. You're losing money every product you're selling. You might as well. You save more money if you stop right there. But if you really have to know like the actual gross margins, which is really helpful, and that's what the investors look at when you want to build a business, what kind of margins you have, it usually should be 3 or 4 times of the 3 to 4 times of your cost of goods. Does it make sense? 3-4 times. So if something costs you $50, you should be trying to selling it between $150 to $200. Why? And then because I'll explain now. Well, if you want to sell like a product like ours, a smart camera, where the commonplace for it is at the retail store like Best Buy. Like what does it take to, if Best Buys around the country would carry our camera and put it in their store? Well, the retailers usually take 50%. So if you go to Best Buy and buy something there that costs $100, that's MSRP and $100, Best Buy paid for it $50. So they have a huge margin. That's normal. They just take that. So you as the factory, as the manufacturer of that car, you better figure out your stuff below $50. They want that $50. It's very, very common, 50%. So it's really harsh. But Amazon is better. Amazon is much better. Amazon is the e-retailer, electronic retailer. They usually take 20 to 25%. But the problem is you can't just do Amazon. Most of the country still goes and buys at the retailer store. They like this idea of a physically touch and feel the store. There is a trend of people more buying the stuff online, but like 92% of the purchases are still done at the store for electronics. Only like 7-8% has been done online on Amazon. So it's a slowly dying, the retail business, but it's a long tail. It'll be there in another 20, 30 years before it completely dies. To make things even worse, so now I'm like the managing the money and how things work if you have a hardware startup. When I sell a product to Best Buy to put it on their store, Best Buy doesn't even give me money right there. They take another 30 to 60 days. They work out the payment terms, and that's normal for them. So me as the manufacturer, as the guy that built this product, are not getting money back right there, another 30, 60 days. These are all very common practices. They treat Fitbit the same way, they treat Apple the same way, they treated Best Buy, they treated Butterflye the same way. I talked about that already. How much should I spend on the marketing? Usually 15% of your revenue. First year, 25% of your revenue for have big blow up campaigns or big blow up marketing and sales coming back in. Now let's talk about raising money for your company. So that was selling, that's one way to get money in the company. Now raising money from investors is another way. That background picture is actual paperwork of our lawyer put together for a note purchase agreement. Is we sell equity and we take money investment back from the investors on it. So first of all, you start with how much money do you need to get a hardware product into the market? I believe you need about $3 to $5 million and 2 to 3 years. 2 years if you don't make any mistakes, 3 years if you make few mistakes, and never if you make too many mistakes. So you need big money to get this thing off the ground because hardware is expensive and manufacturing and all that. I talk about it a little bit at the end here. And then how do I convince a VC to give me money? The number one is traction. The cool idea doesn't matter. Everybody, these guys, the VCs and the investors get pitched by cool ideas left and right. Ideas actually cheap. Execution is really, really hard. And traction proves your cool idea that I liked as investors and you liked as an entrepreneur building it. 1,000 people or 100 other people wanted it too, and they give you money for it, or they ask for the demo, or they wanted to play with whatever product or service you're building. Traction is number one. Number two, the wow factor, your cool demo out of the box for a big market. Let's say you're going after the healthcare industry, some of the problems they have there, you're introducing technology, and healthcare right now is a huge area of innovation because it's a really big market. And most of the pharmaceutical traditional companies are really technology lagging. So it's tech people get into that, like a health tech stuff. It's really interesting for the investors, and they know it's a big market. A lot of people will want products that improves health. And lastly, and this is the third bullet applies to early days, you and your team really matter, and their track record. So it helped that I had worked in the industry for 2 other semiconductors. I had managers and I had VPs that had talked highly of me. They had to give me a little bit of investment, so it provides validation to come in. In my company, our head of engineering was from Apple. Before that, he worked for Sun Microsystem for like 10, 15 years. So he had a big track record, and we showed those off before we had a product to show. I get this question a lot. Should I start a company, or is this just a project? You have to prove a market with 1 user, then 10, then 1,000 if you can, and then maybe you have a company. So a lot of this stuff just a project. It's not a business. A business, you need a big market and a lot of customers that want your product. Okay. I want to jump and talk about what I think is the #1 role of an entrepreneur. I learned this the hard way, and I think #1 role of an entrepreneur is sales. So I was a technical guy. I have an electrical engineering degree. I work as an engineer, and I transitioned into business roles, but it was a very technical business role at these big semiconductor companies. And when I started the company, I feel I spend way too much time on the engineering and the product stuff, because I love that stuff. Those are I feel good. I like building things. But when you decide to become an entrepreneur and start a company, I think you should know your clear job is you're the first salesperson for your company. You have to sell to investors to give you money. You have to sell it to other people to come join you when they can go take a higher paying job working for those big semiconductors or for Apple of the world. So you're constantly in this sell mode. And you really have to learn. I think selling yourself and selling things is a really important skill to have. I really invested on it. I read books. I hired people to work for me. I put my savings into that to get better at it. I used to be if my presentation skills is even a little bit okay, it used to be much worse from what it is now. So I took like presentation classes and all that to help me to come out here and talk in front of people. So I would treat the role of entrepreneur, #1 is sales, and then this is the priority of things. Then they have to take care of customers, they have to take care of the team, then you got investors and you got that. I think this is the order. And I put the product on the top. It's just natural, especially I think if you come back from a tech background, they love it because I mean that's your home, and this is usually you're pushing some new technology, so that's cool. But you gotta be able to say, okay, if I want to be the engineer, I should be the engineer. I want to build this company. I got to be the entrepreneur, and I got to do the sale part as well. All right, guys. I think I took the whole time almost. So I hope not. But thank you. This is my personal email. You guys feel free to give me an email if you have any questions. Of course, right now I can answer any questions you may have as well. Please.
Yeah, what do you think the role of open source is going to be in the future of hardware companies as things like this spot in the
Open source hardware or open source?
Hardware. As open source hardware becomes the biggest thing. What do you think the role of the market is?
I think it's helpful. It makes the product development time to market for consumer product is really important. It makes it faster. But I think to have a great experience, you always need to customize that hardware with your software. The perfect example I can say, Apple makes great software and great hardware. There's one hardware for most part for iOS that runs on that. And it works, the hardware is so customized to work with that operating system, that software. Google, with all the money in the world and all the resources, they make Android, and it's supposed to work with all the other hardwares, right? It's a bit more clunky, as you know. It could work really well with Samsung, but if you go to the other off-brands, it doesn't. They try to say, oh, it's open, here's a reference design for Android hardware. Go make any phones you want. It will work with this software. So it doesn't replace customizing the hardware. But I think it will accelerate time to market. Yeah.
I think it reduces costs.
Yes, yes, it will reduce cost, yes. It will make the job of semiconductors much worse because semiconductors become commodity. The chips have to look the same to become the same reference design. It will stop semiconductors from innovating. Yeah. Please, go ahead.
How do you make the decision of actually selling your company as opposed to scaling it and making the product much better?
Yeah. Well, I knew a lot about the camera and smart home market. When I put the product out there in 2017 and I got the positive reviews and I loved it, I realized there's so many competitors in my market, and some of these competitors are the Google. Google had a company called Nest. Nest had a similar product. We thought ours was better, but was similar concept, a better security camera. Amazon, bunch of other company, Netgear. When I look at it, I learn in a consumer market, so much of the game is who has more money to invest on marketing and advertising. Like who's gonna buy the Super Bowl ad, so it's that many millions of eyes gonna see it. So I realized no matter how much money I raise from my investors, it's never gonna match the Google and Amazon. This company, Ooma, has a lot more money than we have, and they're interested, so it looked like a nice match, a win-win for both sides. And the terms of the deal was good, so. Yes, please.
Yeah, so when you crowdfunded, you had an estimate that you could deliver your product within a year. How did you make that estimate, and where did it go?
I had the estimate I'm going to deliver the product within 4 months, right? I did it September. I had already worked on the product because I got my money in 2014. I had worked on the product. I figured, okay, we're closed now. Based on, we made a judgment. We were obviously wrong. We said we were closed, so we're going to ship by January. Let's go pre-sale. I was off by. I said we were closed. We were not closed. We were. So what went wrong? Unexpected issues. We didn't have the experience. Unexpected issues we didn't know. We had issues on mechanical stuff. I wanted to make it weather resistant, waterproof. Turns out there's a little bit of, after more testing, turns out there's a little bit of leak. Water is getting into the PCB. Now what? You have to change the hardware, change the mechanical. It's like a 4 months schedule delay. Then we had tons of problem with our embedded software. We thought we were going to fix the bugs in a certain period of time. It took us much longer. I lost a key employee in the middle. It took me a long time to find a replacement. There's so many mistakes. Yes, please.
What is your position now in
Ooma? I am one of their VPs. So I run the business group that's the camera and doing some stuff in the home security with like some other sensors around it for like motion and doors and windows opening and closing. So we're still running independent. We have our own office and everything where Butterflye was. We sort of have a new parent company. So instead of having private investors to report to, I report to the CEO of this company now. But yeah, my role hasn't changed too much. Yep. Sure.
Why did you focus on consumer products at all? Why not? Like, to me, this seems like a better enterprise product.
Yeah. I think, yes, I like consumer better. It's a personal decision, yeah. I like when you sell a product and it shows up on Best Buy store, Amazon. My preference is that kind of businesses. Yeah, and I thought there was a lot of opportunity to sell it to consumers. I thought consumer want, and still consumer want a better, cheaper security camera to put in their home, a simpler one. Yeah, please. Yeah.
What would you recommend getting in touch with a lawyer? You mentioned your product is failing XPC tests. So I imagine that's like a regulation.
Oh yeah, FCC is like so when you ship a hardware product and your hardware has if your hardware has radios on it, so we had Wi-Fi and Bluetooth radios, then the government gets involved and says you have to have certain regulation. US called FCC, Canada is IC, and if you want to ship in Europe is CE. And they have certain certification you go through, so the electromagnetic signals are not like are not transmitting so much and so on. It's a formality thing, but you have to do it. And if you fail, back on the drawing board. To do it, and it's usually you do that test late on the stage of your design or close to market, so you've kind of frozen all the components, you're not changing components, but if you fail, you have to go back and likely change components. It's usually a big hit on the schedule. So when you start with an experienced electrical engineer up front, they likely have seen those issues in their career, and they design the boards in a way that's not going to have that. If you have more of a junior electrical engineer, they probably haven't seen that many FCC failures. They would just design like the circuit board makes sense, but there are things that could happen that you would just catch it on experience. So it helps to have the experienced people in there. Yes?
Yeah, I was just going to add to that. Why don't you share your personal side of the story why you actually did the butterfly. Like, I remember you telling me the story
Yes.
of the garage getting broken. And
Yes.
go on trips. I think that's a very inspiring story.
Okay, sure. Yeah. So Butterflye started. Another reason Butterflye started. So I was at TI working on the chips for the camera and for like enterprise security and that kind of that companies like Pelco and all that, like as a chip maker. But in my personal life, I lived in San Francisco and I was into cycling. So I would buy these road bikes and all the gears, and I had multiple break-ins. I actually moved 3 times and I had 3 break-ins into my like garage or back balcony, things that area, not inside my apartment, but around it. And all of it, and my bikes would get stolen. I would save all my money and buy these, like these are more expensive, nicer bikes. And then I thought I should have some sort of a simple security, and I was renting. I couldn't go drill holes on the walls and go hire like ADT, which is very expensive services. I thought there should be like a simple camera I could buy and set around here for looking at my bike, so keep an eye on my bike. I went to store, this is like 2013 time. I went to like Costco, I went to Amazon. I bought all these cameras that I could buy, like DIY kind of stuff. But they were so clunky, so bad to set up. There was like I have an electrical engineering degree, and some of them took me a week to set up. I was like, there's no way you're an average person gonna figure all these fancy settings you need to set up on your router for port forwarding and do the 192.160. I was like, nobody wants to do this thing. It should be an Apple-like experience or Samsung-like experience. So that was I was like, okay, I'm gonna go build that camera that has that kind of simple, easy to use, no wiring needed, no fancy programming to make it work for the consumer. Cool. Yes, please. Took a while, but first of all, I was going to China a lot for manufacturing. Actually, I was going, my factory was in Taiwan. But, well, in the Bay Area, I raised, through connections, and I raised money. When I did that first round, I did Angel, there's a platform called AngelList. I put a little logo of it on the slide, on the timeline slide. AngelList is a platform. You get a lot of little small angel investors. That was one of the best decisions I did. That $1 million check came and a lot of small investors, tiny investors came in. There were many Chinese investors that lived in the Bay Area and they invested on that. And they saw me work, that was 2014. So they saw me working with them 2015, 2016. I regularly update them. Every month I send an investor update. And I always share good news and bad news. It can't be all good news. You always, like, the reality check. So I think I built some credibility with them. So I reached out to them a year or 2 later. I said, hey, do you have some connection? Do you know so-and-so? And then you spend a lot of time in Beijing and Shanghai and you get investments there. And if you want to go to factory, you stay in the south side. That was my experience. Yes?
Ben, you mentioned that you didn't have a co-founder, but
Yeah.
it would have been a good idea to
Yes.
have one. What kind of person would you have looked for as a co-founder, being an engineer yourself?
I think I would have, I think I would have looked for a much better engineer than myself. I knew a little bit of hardware engineering. I came from semiconductors. For a company I wanted to build, there's a ton of software, there's a ton of cloud, there's a ton of AWS, like our servers run on AWS. I would have tried to have a head of engineering and as my CTO or something like that, that would understand the entire hardware, software, mechanical stuff. I just knew the electrical stuff. That wasn't enough to know the whole end-to-end. I would have tried to find that. Or I was also really weak on the design, like industrial design, graphic design, all that. It would have been nice to have a co-founder that balanced that side as well. So those are the areas I would have gone for. Cool, guys. Anything else? All right. I hope it was useful.